Hey folks, thanks for showing up here tonight. My name is Mark Turner and I'm the Chair for Performing Arts and Communication here at Northwest Arkansas Community College. Thank you all very much for attending. I got to give you a quick spiel on a few things. Like if you'd like to donate an instrument or donate any kind of money, there are places you can sign up outside. Get in touch with any of us here. We'd sure like to take whatever you will give us, right? Also, don't forget that the music club usually meets on Friday. I'm not sure when it's meeting now, but Frida is still meeting on Friday. Talk to Frida. You don't have to be a music student to be in the music club, right? Right. Also, we also have lots of great events that are happening here next Monday, and all of these happen over at the Walmart Auditorium in the Shoemaker building. Next Monday is going to be the student recital, so you sure don't want to miss that. The next week on Tuesday is going to be the jazz band. You don't want to miss that. And the week after that on Thursday is when the chamber singers are going to perform, and I know you don't want to miss that. And the reason why I was able to remember all of that was that my doctor told me that I had at least one brain cell left up here. So one last thing I got to tell you, then I'll get out of here, is please make sure that you got your phones turned off. Don't let them hum, buzz. Please don't play with them. If you're sitting next to somebody who pulls out his or her phone and starts messing with it, you have our permission to look at them in a very nasty kind of way. Maybe that's the best we can do with that. So without any further ado, I'm so happy to introduce Miles Fish, who has done several great lectures and events here, talking about Mozart, and I heard him just a while ago talking about Schubert. He says he loves Schubert, right? Oh, he's okay. But tonight it's all about Beethoven, so without any further ado, please help me give a big hand to Miles Fish.
That was in the year 1802. Here's a note from the year 1792. This is from A. Joseph Gelenick. Yesterday was a day I shall always remember. That young fellow must be in league with the devil. I've never heard anybody play like that. I gave him a theme to improvise on, and I assure you, I've never even heard Mozart improvise that way. Then he plays some of his own compositions, which are marvelous. Really wonderful stuff. He manages difficulty and effects on the keyboard that we never even dreamed of. He's small, he's ugly, he's swarthy, he seems to have a woeful disposition, and he's Beethoven. Beethoven was born in Bonn at an age of -2. I'll explain. Early on, everyone was aware that this was an exceptionally musically gifted child. Everybody was saying, this is the new Mozart. And his dad decided that he should be the new Mozart, and he was going to be the new Mozart's dad. And he was going to take this child prodigy all around and make all of this money. But it didn't really work out that way. He just didn't have the personality that Mozart had as a child prodigy. But the father kept touring him and kept having him to play, and to make sure he kept his child prodigy label, he would always take years off of it. So when he was 8 years old, his dad was advertising that Beethoven, age 6, will now be playing for you. Beethoven never really knew how old he was. History had to decide that later on, because his dad had changed his age so many times. But he was an extremely gifted child. At the age of 12, he had his first compositions that were published. At the age of 17, the Elector of Bonn gave him a stipend to move to Vienna and study with Mozart. And so he moves to Vienna to study with Mozart, and he's been there for a little less than 2 weeks, and he gets word that his mom, back in Bonn, Germany, is dying. He doesn't even have his first lesson, but he moves all the way back to Bonn to be at her side. She passes away. His father, who's been prone to alcoholism, goes off the deep end about this time. And he realizes that his 2 younger brothers are not going to be cared for if he leaves and goes back to study with Mozart. So he stays. He gets a job in the court orchestra. He plays the organ for the church on Sunday. He tries to make enough money, but he can't make enough money to support them because his dad, by this time, is drinking up all of the pension that he received from being a court tenor for all of these years. So he petitions the court that the court would give him part of his dad's salary so that he can feed his 2 younger brothers. Here's a letter. This is from 1793. It's a letter from Beethoven to the Elector Maximilian Francis. Some years ago, Your Highness was pleased to grant a pension to my father, the court tenor Van Beethoven, and further graciously decreed that a portion of that salary should be allotted to me for the purpose of maintaining, clothing, and educating my 2 younger brothers. It was my intention to present this decree to Your Highness's treasurer, but my father earnestly implored me to desist from doing so, that he might not be thus publicly proclaimed incapable himself of supporting his family, adding that he would engage to pay me quarterly, which he did punctually. After his death, however, in December, wishing to reap the benefits of Your Highness's gracious pension by presenting the decree, I was startled to find out that my father had destroyed it. I therefore, with all dutiful respect, entreat Your Highness to renew this decree in order that the payment of Your Highness's treasurer to grant me the last quarter of my father's benevolent addition to my salary. And he does. So he stays there for 5 years. Finally, his brothers are old enough to support themselves, and he moves to Vienna. Earlier, Joseph Haydn had come through Bonn, and he had met Beethoven, and Beethoven had brought him some of his stuff and played it for him. And Haydn said, you know, if you ever make to the big city, kid, look me up. I'd love to be your teacher. So that was the plan. So at the age 22, he moves back to Vienna, and he gets his new teacher, Haydn. Joseph Haydn, possibly the most influential musician in the world at that time. And they did not like each other at all, not one little bit. Right at the very beginning of the relationship, there were 2 things that came between them. 2 things that were very important to both of them. Money and music. About the money. Beethoven had told Haydn that the Elector was only giving him a very small amount of money, and he was unable to live on that money, so he kept borrowing repeatedly from Haydn so that he could be able to live on that money. And he showed Haydn some of the stuff that he had been working on while he was in Vienna, he said. And so Haydn, being the good old grandpapa that he is, he takes it upon himself to write the Elector in Bonn saying, you need to help this kid out. How do you expect? Here's the letter. This is Haydn. Most Reverend Archbishop and Elector, I am taking the liberty of sending your reverence in all humility a few pieces of music composed by my dear pupil, Beethoven. On the basis of these pieces, expert and amateur alike cannot but admit that Beethoven will in time become one of the greatest musicians Europe has known. While I'm on the subject of Beethoven, may your reverence permit me to say a few words concerning his financial affairs. For the past year, he was only allotted 100 ducats. This sum is insufficient for even mere living expenses. So in order to prevent him from falling to the hands of usurers, I have advanced him the cash, so that he now owes me 500 florins. I now request that this sum be paid to him. If your reverence would allot him the 1,000 florins per year, your reverence would free him of all anxiety. The Elector writes back, Dear Joseph Haydn, the music of young Beethoven, which you sent to me, was composed and performed here in Bonn before he departed for Vienna. thus I cannot regard it as progress made in Vienna. As far as the stipend is concerned, he receives 900 florins per year. I cannot therefore very well see why he is in much debt, as you say. I am wondering, therefore, whether he had better not just come on back here to Bonn and resume his work. For I very much doubt that he has made very much progress in Vienna, and I fear he will only bring us back debts. Needless to say, Haydn was embarrassed. There he had gone out on a limb, he had written as official. Beethoven had thoroughly misrepresented the whole situation. He had not composed those pieces while he was working under his teacher in Vienna. He had composed them there, but he didn't know that Haydn was going to be so wonderful and trying to get him more money. That was the beginning. The next thing that drove them apart, although they continued their relationship throughout their lives, they kind of grinned and bare it. But the next thing was music. His first opus was piano trios, 1, 2, and 3. And so he played the piano trios for Haydn and several other friends. He played the piano trios, and Haydn liked 1 and he liked 2, but he thought number 3 was dangerous. Listen to this. Oops, turn the page. Haydn said many fine things about the trios, but he also cautioned Beethoven that he would not advise him to publish number 3, the C minor, another article that was written. Haydn advised Beethoven not to publish the C minor trio. Beethoven took offense, thinking Haydn was jealous of him and ill-disposed to him, though Haydn said he was simply trying to protect Beethoven from what he thought would be a hostile public relations. Listen to this. Here's the number 3 in C minor. Nobody's shocked. Nobody is shocked by that. But they were at the time, and they were when it came out. And a lot of people were saying he made a big mistake because he was already starting to be accused of piling on themes without properly developing them. And so, because of this, he thought that he was the way of the future, and he thought that Haydn was trying to hold him back. They never quite recovered from that. Just as one thought, some of the places that we're going to be talking about tonight were the places that Byretta and I were able to visit when I was working this past summer, thanks to a grant from the NWAC Foundation and a grant from the
Crop family.
Yes, to go there. And I made this little video of this, and here's some of the things that we saw while we were there. Here we go. Pathetique, Beethoven's reportedly favorite to play in public. His grandfather was a wealthy man. He came from Belgium. He was hired by the electorate at Bonn to come there and oversee the music program for the court. His father kind of ran on the coattails of his grandfather. Theater on the Veen. That's where the Delio premiered and also the Fifth Symphony premiered there. How to get started, we'll talk more about that in just a second. Still the same as it was in Beethoven's day. So, while he was in Vienna right at the very first, he made a lot of money playing the piano. He had a tremendous reputation as being a virtuoso on the piano. The other way that he and a lot of other musicians made money was through composition. Not by composing the big symphonies, but by composing the small works. Vienna was overrun with musicians, professional and amateurs alike, especially amateur musicians, and especially women musicians, because women were not allowed to play in Therefore, on the weekends, on Saturdays and on Sunday afternoons, they had musicales. And so the one percenters would all get together and they would go to the salons, and there the ladies could perform their music. And so one of the ways that these composers could make money was by writing small works that these women could play at their musicales. And so Beethoven wrote a ton of them, but not a ton of them sold. And one of the reasons why is one of his publishers wrote him and said, I can't sell this stuff. You're writing for connoisseurs and we're selling to amateurs. And he said, I don't write for amateurs. So here's one of those small pieces for bassoon and clarinet. And in the background, I've got some photos of me floating by of some of the manuscripts that we were able to see while we were there.